Hello, everybody, and welcome. Welcome here to World Unity Week, UETV featured event for this, Monday, the 22nd of June. Although in other parts of the world, it's already the 23rd. My name is Ben Bowler from Unity Earth, and I'm excited to be hosting this conversation today. Our theme today is answering the call. And it's one that's very dear to all of our hearts because it was the theme of the original World Unity Week in 2020 when absolute dramatic fashion the whole world got shut down, and perhaps for the first time in human history the whole planet was having the same experience. And there, in that tremendous transformation and change and challenge, unbelievable opportunity arose. And one of the things that came out of that was this very platform of World Unity Week. I'm thinking, what can we do while everybody's at home? What do we do when we have all this momentum on back then, the road to 2020 and building up to the Caravan of Unity? And really, it was this mid-year time period around the solstice and all the other things that emerged that we thought, let's bring people together to have a big conversation about everything that's unfolding and emerging. And that first year, the entire theme, the entire essence really for all of us was answering the call. So in a way today we're echoing that that origin of what happened, not just for World Unity Week, but for so many things that transformed in 2020. And today we've got two extraordinary world leaders in the field of healing, trauma release, transformation, community, coming together through the process of healing. And I think one of the things that's so exciting about this, well, I want to bring them up. Let's bring up our speakers today. I'm going to do an introduction for them. So we've got Dr. Leyden and we've got Kate Macnamara. I want to welcome Laurie and Kate here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Laurie and Kate. Welcome to World Unity Week.
I'm so grateful to be here, and especially with Kate. And of course, you are the miracle connector, Ben, which I will speak about later. But Kate and I have been having a joyful time.
Thank you. It's
Kate,
beautiful to be here. Yes. Good morning. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's beautiful to be here with you all, and lovely to be here with you too, Laurie.
Let me say a little bit about our esteemed guests here, and then we're going to get into the conversation. Dr. Leyden is an internationally recognized humanitarian, trauma healing pioneer, leadership advisor, author, and founder of Create Global Healing. For more than 3 decades, she has worked at the convergence of psychology, neuroscience, trauma healing, leadership development, and humanitarian recovery, helping individuals, communities, and leaders transform adversity into resilience and possibility. You can find out more and connect and support at createglobalhealing.org. Wow, Laurie, I know that your bio could go on for paragraphs, but that's a very powerful summation. Kate Macnamara is a transformative psychotherapist, counselor, mentor, founder of Wholehearted Evolution, an award-winning author of the Wholehearted Revolution trilogy. Her life's work is dedicated to healing, wholeness, and conscious human evolution. Through her more than 20 years of clinical practice, writing, and teaching, Kate has guided countless people to transform fear, trauma, and adversity into pathways of growth, empowerment, and meaningful contribution. Kate believes that as we heal and remember who we truly are, we naturally become a force for greater compassion, connection, and positive change in the world. And you can follow Kate and find out so much more and all the resources at wholeheartedrevolution.com.au. We'll get those links in the chat for those people in the Zoom room. We're going to be I'm going to say a couple of sentences about today's discussion. In a world shaped by division, uncertainty, and rapid change, many people are sensing a deeper call towards healing, wholeness, and meaningful connection. In this inspiring conversation, Kate Macnamara and Dr. Leyden will explore how activating global healing begins within each of us through presence, compassion, inner coherence, and the courage to return to our deepest humanity. Through dialogue and reflection, this session invites participants into a grounded and yet hopeful exploration of healing ourselves, one another, and our world. Well, it's kind of where it's at, isn't it? When we look at, everything that is up in the world, in ourselves, in our lives, in our communities. We've initiated yesterday 99 days of peace through unity, but in some senses, healing is the missing ingredient in that, because the idea of peace through unity is wonderful and true and profound. And yet so often it's our own unresolved trauma that comes in the way, that forms the real barriers, both unconscious and conscious, to us actually achieving the unity that can bring us to peace. And that might just be unity within the self, or unity within the family, the community, the friendship group, and beyond. So it really is, healing is the crossroads of, I think, where humanity is at right now. In order to achieve the coherence and the peace and the unity and all these things we aspire to, the greatest stumbling block is our own unresolved trauma. And so the work that you two are both doing is, in some senses, the most essential work of all, which is to help navigate and guide individuals, groups, and communities through the journey and the process of healing at a deep level, so that we can achieve that we're all wanting to aspire to. So, Laurie, we're going to kick it off with you, and I'm really looking forward to your sharing today. I think we've known each other for about 8 years, maybe now. It's since we met as a
2017.
2017. Wow, there you go, 9
I
years.
remember
Wow.
the exact moment.
It was at a restaurant in Santa Barbara, I think, and Laurie has. You'll hear a bit more about Laurie's work, which I'm really excited about. But from the outback in Australia to the genocide conflict in Rwanda, to the war that's happening right now in Ukraine, to the school shootings of Sandy Hook, and wherever there is the most devastation and trauma in the world, you will find Laurie Leyden and her work. It's deeply, deeply inspiring. By their fruit shall you know them. And seeing you, Laurie, showing up in these incredibly challenging contexts is just awesome. So we're really excited to hear more about your work and the work that you're doing currently, what's brought you to here, createglobalhealing.org. But Laurie Leyden, over to you, and let's get into this discussion today.
Yay. Thank you, Ben. And again, Kate, I apologize for my video as I'm in a place that is experiencing some thunderstorms, but I know that our love connects us, and our shared vision connects us. I like to start anything that I'm doing with a little grounding, a little breathing, a little invitation to become present. And so I will invite you right now to close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing that, to place your hand on your heart and just take a moment to breathe. Imagine erasing the blackboard of your mind. And with each breath, noticing how it's possible to become just a little bit more still in your heart, how your body can relax, and inviting you to place your consciousness in your heart, knowing that your heart will know just what to do. And in these places, I like to repeat this mantra, which I will explain and ask you to repeat with me. Often during the day, I repeat this mantra. I breathe. I remember the truth of who I am. I surrender, and I return to this present moment. And so, taking a moment now to take that full inhale and that full exhale into the knowing that this is our time together. Imagining an infinity circuit that connects our heart with what I call the divine one heart. and in this place to repeat with me. I breathe. I remember the truth of who I really am, a divine being with a divine purpose. I surrender to that remembering, and I return to the present where I have access to all that is needed in the moment. And whatever may be competing for your attention, I invite you to touch into the energy of gratitude. Perhaps noticing how the energy of gratitude can give rise to the energy of love. And in the presence of love and gratitude, touching into the energy of wonder. The wonder of all you have passed through. The wonder that whatever you choose to heal in yourself creates a resonance field for that healing to unfold in the world, so that truly your greatest service work in the world is being in service to your own healing. And from this place, remembering that infinity circuit, listening for some wisdom from your heart. What is it that your heart wants to know about the wonder and possibility of creating global healing in our lifetime and your role in it? Just listening for whatever arises. And with a few healing breaths now, preparing to come back to the room. And just gently, when you feel ready, opening your eyes. And welcome everyone for joining us today and creating this resonance field where we can, through our stories, perhaps invite you more deeply into your own purpose and your own unique responsibility and ability to create global healing. I'm going to try to share my screen, Ben, and share the trailer to my documentary, which I will set up a bit. So part of our work in Create Global Healing was my work in Rwanda that led me to fall in love with genocide survivors and understand that they, in partnership, that I could be in partnership with them, true partnership, to develop a model that might just support global healing when we nurture our next generation of traumatized youth to become heart-centered leaders. And what does that entail? We need trauma healing skills, we need economic sustainability skills, and we need heart-centered leadership skills, which are more sorely needed than ever before, and very much a focus of World Unity Week, as Ben and everyone invites us to participate, because without you, we can't do it. And so I'm going to try to share that right now. It's not really letting me select the file.
Is it on YouTube, Laurie?
It is on YouTube. Yes, it is.
Okay.
And there
Do
are
you have
two.
the link? Do you have the link?
There's the trailer, and then there's the
long
full
form of documentary, yeah.
We don't want
If
to
you're able to send me the link, then I can share it from my side. If you share me the link to the YouTube, if you're not able to share,
let me try one more time, and perhaps you could share the miracle of our meeting and what led to the next iteration of my humanitarian work in Australia, which is part of the miracle that Ben brings to this work.
Well, I don't know if it was, I mean, it was certainly the miracle of the ancestors working through us all, I think, Laurie, and it was a beautiful encounter in Santa Barbara at a restaurant, and with a bunch of people who was visiting there on one of the trips to the US, obviously in 2017, and we were preparing for the return to country of Mungo Man at that time, which was a big event here in Australia. And I was telling people about the story, and Laurie's kind of lit up because she'd been working with some of the Indigenous grandmothers along the Murray River over into South Australia, I think, or in that area. And they had been telling Laurie all about Mungo Lady and Mungo Man and this whole story. And I was talking about this opportunity to be present and to come for the return of this, really seismic moment when Mungo Man finally was returned to country after Mungo Lady had been.
In 1994.
All right. Obviously,
okay, you got it.
I found it.
But you've got it. You've got it. So looks like, has somebody put the link in the channel?
I'm gonna.
It looks like they've found the channel, Dr. Laurie Leyden. You've got a lot of videos here. I just need the one that you want to show. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to do that. And I apologize to everyone once again.
So as Laurie's finding that, the magic of that moment, Laurie, which was how we got connected, was that, I'm in Santa Barbara in California telling the story about ancestors in Australia. And Laurie was working with Aboriginal community in the region, Robinvale, I think it was.
Yes, exactly.
In that area, and working with some of the elders who'd been telling Laurie that part of the trauma was that these ancestors had not been returned to country, and that there was still, kind of wounds and hurts as a result of that. So, yeah, it was a beautiful moment of recognition, and that Laurie was coming to Australia around that time to continue the work, and was able to join us for the return to country of Mungo Man in November 2017, which was a very, very profound, very, very. So, well, I think we're going to continue that story, but first I'm going to play this video, Peter Young, just so you know, and we're going to share it now. We'll play it to yeah. Okay. Bear with me. It'll all be worth it. Here we go.
In 1994, nearly 1 million people were slaughtered in the Rwandan genocide. The survivors are haunted by post-traumatic stress syndrome, their lives shattered with little or no access to mental health resources.
Genocide had always been a topic that touched my heart deeply. When I did receive the call to come to Rwanda, it just felt right. It fit into place.
Laurie Leyden, an American trauma specialist, creates Project Light when she discovers the devastating impact of PTSD on children.
We're going to teach you some very important healing techniques, and we're going to begin your trauma healing right now.
Project Light handpicks orphans to become ambassadors and trains them in PTSD coping skills.
Now, the techniques that we're using can help you with the memories. so that it's possible for the memory to become present in your mind, but it does not trigger the trauma.
They are taught basic entrepreneurial, leadership, and management practices. As they rediscover meaning and purpose, they pay their healing forward to hundreds of others across Rwanda.
How could I know that this was not just about trauma in a faraway land? That this same kind of trauma would eventually come home to American soil.
Just after 9:30 this morning, Newtown Police received a 911 call. There were several fatalities at the scene.
Laurie is called to help with JT, whose brother was murdered in the shootings. She recognizes the same trauma symptoms in JT she had seen in Rwanda.
I thought to myself, what would happen if some of the ambassadors could talk to JT? Your courage in facing the most difficult challenges that we know really can make a difference in the world, and not only in the world, but a difference to each one of you.
Trauma is universal, but one simple truth can create miracles. When the weight of your giving exceeds that of your pain, then that's when everything changes.
Your story is very inspiring, and it brings hope that there can be a brighter future.
My goodness.
Thank you, Ben. I know that might be a little jarring to people, but I do hope that the inspiration and the hope and the imagination of possibility of connecting Rwandan genocide survivors with a 12-year-old boy in Newtown who had experienced such violence. Because who was he going to listen to? He was not going to listen to these adults who hadn't experienced what he'd experienced. But it is part of the story that brings me to our time together today, which is, how did I hear the call? How did I answer the call? And how did I really honor that my role is significant? And it all began by my pursuit of healing my own trauma, my childhood trauma, which was quite significant, certainly nothing like Rwandans have experienced. But in my pursuit of healing my own traumas, I found the seeds of my destiny. I found that what I became passionate about was, in fact, the glimpse into a future where, what did I want most when I was 12 years old in a very traumatizing situation? I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be heard. I wanted to know that I mattered. I wanted a bright future. And I wanted to be rescued. And that led me on a path of really looking deep inside myself about, what needed to be healed in myself. I came to know or believe that there are two purposes in every lifetime. And the first purpose is to heal that wound of separation from the divine. And in doing that, in traveling back to healing that wound, we then find the seeds of our own personal expression of the divine. And I say this because, to some people, my personal expression of my divine destiny is global and sometimes appears perhaps grand in some way. And yet I don't see it that way. I see that this is simply my saying yes to the vision and the passions that evolve in me. And having said that, I have come to know that every single purpose that each person has, whether it's personal healing, and then from that personal healing leading to healing with your partner, with your families, with your communities, with your countries, and with the world, we are all essential to that healing. We all have our place. And it's not to compare ourselves to others, but to honor. can you imagine if we really truly accept that healing our own traumas is our service work, that there's nothing else to focus on. The rest becomes synergy, the synergy of connecting with other like-hearted, like-valued people. And as we have our own internal integration along that healing path, we become aligned with others who have similar values and visions. And that's what my message really is to those who are listening today, is that you all have a unique purpose and an integral purpose. And the path to wholeness as a world begins with the path to wholeness inside of ourselves. And so rather than continuing to we all have these core issues that evolve from that separation, that wound of separation. We don't believe we're lovable. We're not good enough. We're not worthy and deserving. Once we begin to heal that and realize that we are essential to global healing, we can begin to trust ourselves and to follow the hints and clues of where our inclusion is important. And I'll just say a few more words because I know we already, with my technical difficulties, have eaten into some time here. But I followed that path of learning to heal myself through my teens and 20s, where I was extremely dysregulated and extremely disconnected from myself because of that pain that I felt that there was something wrong with me, that I was unlovable, that I wasn't worthy or deserving. And as I pursued all kinds of healing techniques, I like to say, known to man, woman, and extraterrestrials. I mean, meaning that I have literally explored everything possible about healing. And then I began to ask myself, and I began to ask the divine, how can we heal more elegantly? How can we heal more gracefully without jumping into the pit of what is wrong with us? And instead to recognize what is right with us, that we are whole and healed already, and is simply healing that separation from the divine so we can recognize that wholeness. So self-growth and all of our therapy work has traditionally focused on what's wrong, and every time there's another contraction, you jump in the hole with what must be wrong with you instead of what's emerging. That takes time. It takes practice. It takes inspiration and hope. And I've done that throughout each of my decades. I won't say how many decades. It did lead to me being able to connect with my life's work, which I call the Embodied Presence Heart Map, which is a map for how we do this healing and how we connect into what our purpose is in the world. And it has carried me through many, many dark times and many miraculous times that continue to emerge when I follow my heart and meet people like Kate and Ben and literally jump into alignment with you and decide what wants to emerge in this partnership, and that it also allows us to trust uncertainty. Can I trust myself when the world appears to be falling apart? When some days cannot see the hope and the inspiration, which is what World Unity Week is all about, which is what the 100 Days of Peace is all about. What are the hints and the clues and the inspiration that bring us back to wholeness, bring us back to remembering the truth of who we truly are, divine beings on a quest for global healing. And I'll just bookmark it there. And open the conversation.
Oh, amazing. Amazing, Laurie. We love hearing you talk. Could listen to you, going on and on with all of that incredible story and the grace and the wisdom and the beauty. And again, It's one thing to speak about it, and there are a lot of people in the community that are very eloquent about the beauty of the revelation of our divine nature and awakening to who we are, and yet to be able to hold that when you're within some of the most challenging contexts on the planet, I think it just really takes it to another level. And I suppose for those of us who have grown up with or studied the life of Jesus, where would he be? He would be out there on the front lines with the broken and with the traumatized and doing the work that you are doing. So it's incredibly Christ-like, I think, Laurie, your mission in the world. And yeah, deep bows. I've already had people commenting and sharing with me how touched they are by your story. Yeah, you're the real deal, and we're very honored and grateful to have you here to share with us, because I think right across the whole space, whether or not somebody's experienced, it's not about measuring the trauma, I think, is it, Laurie? I mean, everybody's gone through their own thing, and we cannot say this one is bigger than that one, but in terms of being able to apply the principles and in terms of being able to initiate that healing journey, which is a lifelong quest, as you say, to continue to grow towards that wholeness and healing. It's a great gift, a great medicine, a great boon that you bring, and we're very grateful to you for that, and excited about what we can do going forward together, Laurie. So thank you. And I'm really tremendously excited now to hear from Kate Macnamara, because Kate has played, hey Kate, you played such a key role over the last year or so for us at Unity Earth, and what took place in Missouri, and similar in some ways. We went to, with Dr. Marty K. Casey and many of the Peace Pilgrims, to Ferguson, which is another one of these symbols of challenge in the United States, and difficulties and trauma, murder and death, and incredibly challenging story. But we went there, and part of the reason we did that Fields of Healing, Kate, was because of your commitment and your presence and your determination. So that certainly played a very important catalytic role in what took place in Missouri in August last year as Fields of Healing, meeting in the middle. I mean, we could talk a little bit more about that perhaps later on. But Kate, it's wonderful to have you here with us. And wasn't Laurie's, presentation and sharing just so inspirational? And we're looking forward to hearing your deep sharing today with your work at Wholehearted Evolution.
Oh, thank you, Ben, and hello to everybody. We really stand, I feel humanity stands at such a threshold at the moment. Many people are suffering, feeling disheartened, unsure of what to do next. Yet beneath it all, I do feel that many are sensing and feeling called to something deeper, not only with change in the world, but something deeper within ourselves. And that call I felt all my life. And at times it felt a desperate call to heal from, the impact of childhood trauma and how that affected my whole life, and required deeper and deeper healing to free me from the crippling effects of the silencing of my voice, my ability to speak, all the rest of it. Through that healing journey, and it was quite a healing journey, and it continues. We all continue to heal, I feel, and embody who we are. But at some point, I really realized that personal and collective healing are not separate things. They really are expressions of the same thing. Personal healing really is about bringing together our body, mind, heart, and soul into congruence. And Laurie mentioned, the belief, the core belief in separation. And we've all held that, we hold that. And it goes extremely deep into our psyche. And that led to fragmentation within us, the birth of fear, fragmentation, and disconnection from ourselves, from each other, from nature, from source, the universe. And that's played havoc throughout humanity's journey and the patterns and dynamics that have evolved from that in the journey of humanity. In my work, I work with what I've created over the years, and I call it, it's a bit of a mouthful, the three-tiered wholehearted empowerment process. But it's an approach, but a pathway of how to meet ourselves in the everyday. I mean, how to, if we're escalated in the nervous system, and if we hold past trauma, which hasn't been discharged, released, melted, our nervous systems can be vulnerable to being stuck on or stuck off. Mine was vulnerable to being stuck off. So it was shut down. So how to meet ourselves in the moment, how to de-escalate the nervous system, how to process our reactions, our fears, so that we can then work consciously with our minds, because there is a principle that, our thoughts and beliefs really come from what we believe in our minds. So there's the first level of that three-tiered wholehearted empowerment process is about that, the everyday, how to work with ourselves in the everyday if we're having a challenging day or we feel upset or something's happened. Then the second tier is about healing the causes. And this is really significant, because if we don't heal the causes of so many of our challenges and patterns, etc., then we can sometimes work with ourselves in the everyday, but they'll resurface again. I'm sure some of us here in the room will feel that, it's like something happens and it's like, why is this happening again? That sort of thought. So the healing of causes is really about healing the impact of trauma within ourselves, and also healing the deep core beliefs, what's called the schematic beliefs, and they can be subconscious. I often liken them to the back-end programming of a computer. I don't see that back-end programming when I'm doing telehealth sessions or writing my emails, but there's something running the show. And Laurie mentioned before, they really are, the not good enoughness, the unworthiness, the unlovable, the unwantable, the abandonment, the belief that I'm abandonable, I will not have support when I need it, or others will leave. There's a number of deep core beliefs that we generally have a few of those. I certainly did. The deep beliefs in wrongness about myself, that how I was wrong and not enough and unlovable. And then we can even go on to have secondary schemas from there. One of mine was self-sacrifice, to put others first. And we can live on in a whole pattern of survival coping mechanisms and survival strategies to be okay, to cope okay, to manage in life. So there is a deeper healing about that, but it's not all about focusing on what's wrong. So we do need to be careful with that. So the third stage or the third tier in that process, in the wholehearted empowerment process, is attuning to who we really are. And we can do that through music, through sound, through chant, through being in nature. There's, you'll feel it, that you can attune. It's to the self. I mean, we can witness our mind thinking. Who are we as the witness? We can feel when something's truly true. So beginning to attune to ourselves, it doesn't have to wait till we get to tier 3. That can happen at any time. But what sabotages us to be able to really attune to that is often the trauma and those deep core beliefs. So if we don't tend to our healing, attuning can become a form of bypassing. And I've found that over the years that the deepest, the most powerful doorway to embodying the truth of who we are is through the portal of actually healing. It's sometimes releasing all the misidentifications, the beliefs of what we're not. So grief, I'm often reminded of grief. The grieving process gives us a huge clue that, and it's an organic, universal, transformative process, but it gives us the clue that a process is needed. And And it's like, okay, so we're shown in a way that's an example to us of how we begin to live with any change or loss in our lives. I often describe it as a huge adjustment, adaptation process to what's occurred. So there's a huge wisdom in grief. And for any new beginnings to really occur, we do need to return to our wholeness. And we continue to return to our wholeness. So the courageous healing process is that return. I've often called it the portal of great change. It's the healing process so that a new beginning can really occur in our freedom from the grip from past fears, wounds, patterns, and dynamics. We cannot create a new way of being in our world when we're entangled, embroiled in that. So that's where the healing journey is there. And as we sort of release more and more and come more deeply into ourselves, we begin to restore the balance. This is really important, the balance between our hearts and our mind, emotional intelligence and the intellect, our knowing, and what's often called the feminine qualities of being, which have been suppressed in age-old dynamics. And they are the intuition, our creativity, our compassion, our collaboration, our deep presence. And they begin to come back into companionship, partnership with the masculine qualities, clarity, courage, integrity, confidence, and they become aligned together. So flow and form, intuition and purpose, receptivity and manifestation. And the incredible thing is, as we become more whole and embodied wholeness, it naturally ripples into the collective. So this is what's never ceases to amaze me, and where our healing journeys are the most important ways. Often the biggest contribution we can offer is our healing journeys, our unique healing journeys, to embody our incredible uniqueness. And we're all needed for this. And every one of us that heals an aspect, or in any day we choose love instead of fear, we choose to process what's at hand, and rather than come from reaction, we can come from the truth within ourselves, when we're able to be truly present with another. So healing can be quite a journey, yet also in deep presence, healing can be spontaneous and immediate as well. I often feel extremely humbled in those moments with clients when healing is spontaneous. Just that amount of safety and deep presence is there. And this is really what our wholehearted evolution is. Wholeheartedness to me is the return to our wholeness, our body, mind, heart, and soul in coherence within the self. And wholehearted revolution is often the healing journey. There can be a little bit of turbulence in that, I found for myself anyway. It was often a turbulent journey at times. But that's the revolution of our consciousness, the transformative healing revolution. And from that, we begin to wholeheartedly emerge. That's our becoming of who we are. And all of that together becomes our wholehearted evolution, our personal evolution, which is a part of the collective evolution. And from that also there's wholehearted hope. I think in this world where everything seems to be shattering apart, the shadow of human consciousness is certainly up for healing. It's wholehearted hope. And that's the wholehearted hope is not a false optimism. It's a knowingness in our heart and souls that as we heal, as we become more of who we truly are, right? That's what shapes the world we share, is that. And that we all have that power within us. Does it take courage? Absolutely. So I think I'll leave it there just for the moment so we can continue on. But I just want to just say again that healing is the most powerful way that we can serve. And it's the most powerful way we can genuinely return to our wholeness so that we can begin anew and for real create a more loving, peaceful, and compassionate world. So I'll leave it there for a moment.
No, thank you. Thank you, Kate. Your work is so beautiful, so profound, and so timely on so many different levels. And from the individual level that you work at in a professional capacity to the work that you've done in creating this work of wholehearted revolution and a wholehearted evolution. And between you and Laurie is just a wealth of areas for us to explore. We might bring Laurie back up here as well if we can get Laurie to come and join us. I might get Laurie to respond first to you, Kate, and then let's embark on a conversation from there. So, Laurie, what are you receiving from Kate sharing?
Yes, we are very aligned, and I call this synergy, right? So in our world today, we have a lot of transactional synergy, people trying to get something out of their connection with other people. But what I experienced with Kate and you and so many other people, our evolutionary leaders, is a sense of true collaboration. And so everything that Kate expressed fits perfectly into my paradigm of the embodied presence heart map. I would like to say a word about courage because that is part of our theme. We recently lost our beloved Jean Houston. And I had the privilege of having several very, transcendent experiences with our beloved Jean. And she wrote a book called The Wizard of Us, which was a take on the archetypal Wizard of Oz. I attended the workshop. She knew about my work in Newtown and invited me to a private lunch with her. Now, already I'm like, oh my God. And there were only four of us, but she was really curious about my humanitarian work, about Rwanda, how Rwanda led to Newtown, which led to Parkland, which led to Australia, which led to Ukraine. In any event, we had this conversation, go back after lunch, and she stands up at the podium and says, and now we're going to talk about the cowardly lion, and Lori Leyden is going to speak to us of courage. In only the way that Jean can do that, the fact that I had to pick myself up off the floor. I was just like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the reason why this story is important is because I had no idea. And I'm walking up, this is being recorded. It's her workshop. It's going on. It's crazy. And so, of course, with her beautiful flair, and she was sitting in this queen's chair, and she just went, proceed. I didn't know what I was proceeding with, but I just began to tell my story about how I jump off cliffs. I jumped off the cliff into my own healing. I jumped off the cliff in Rwanda. I jumped off the cliff to go to Newtown. And as I was telling the story, I began to have a transformation. Now, this is what Jean is totally known for, right? She somehow grokked in 1 hour the thing that I needed to embrace the most, which was courage. And I'll stop the story there, but just to say, I have reflected on that. That happened in 2014, 2013. And I have since realized that I was in false humility, rejecting courage. And I realized when I gave courage to my ego, that was the false humility, deny, deny, deny. When I gave courage to my heart, I realized that if I didn't embrace it in my heart, I would not have the courage I needed to continue to move forward, which is exactly what happened and has happened for That's 15 years. So I'll bookmark that there. But in the invitation to all, please, please, please give your gifts and talents to your heart. We cannot afford to play small anymore. Not from a place of hubris, not from a place of arrogance or narcissism, but simply from, aha, I did do that. So I did do that. And let me honor what that really means so that I have the inspiration to move forward again when the next task that seems completely out of my experience or understanding that I say yes to.
It's beautiful, Laurie. Courage is so, I think in the beginning for me, it was more a case of desperation. But courage, our healing journey, is a courageous journey because it does require deep self-responsibility, and to be there and to be with our suffering, to be with our pain, and to walk through that. But that's also what helps us to be in a world, and you have undoubtedly experienced this, Laurie, to be with suffering such as what in Rwanda, but to not collapse in that, to be able to be present. So we do need to know how to support ourselves so we can be open-hearted, and it is heartfelt courage in the presence of suffering, to not fear, to be able to be in breath and trust of ourselves and to be able to show up in that. So courage is huge, it's significant. Thank you for bringing attention to that.
Absolutely. And for bringing in Jean Houston as well into the conversation. It's always special to have Jean pop in and be represented that way. She, touched so many people. We're going to get to some questions. We encourage people to pop some questions in the chat. There's one there we'll get to in a moment. I'm struck by a couple of things. One is, in the spirit of Jean Houston, is always about the excitement of the adventure, the great adventure. And, healing, dealing with trauma, sickness, and as well as the kind of intergenerational trauma and community trauma that we've been talking about, can be pretty heavy. Can be a pretty heavy subject for people to hold. So as we then kind of look to where we are now and the beckoning future, we're talking about a new beginning, Kate and Laurie. And if we look at the 10,000, 20,000 years of human history, there is a lot to heal between genders and races and colonizers and indigenous and oppressors. I mean, there's no end really to the amount of trauma that's in the field, that's in the system, that's embedded in our histories and our biographies. What are you most excited about, Laurie? Let's start with you, and then we'll come to you, Kate. As we sort of sit in this moment, we're doing what you're recommending, Laurie, and we're acknowledging everything that's brought us to this moment, our successes, our challenges, our victories, our individually and collectively. And yet we're looking to the world that is groaning and hurting and suffering under so much unresolved trauma. What do you get excited about as we, in this field and the space of your own work, as we look to the beckoning future, the unborn new beginning that we're in right now?
How much time do we have? No. Truly, that everyone is significant to this healing. I look at the possibilities. I do not jump in the hole with I have deep compassion for the devastation that's happening. I have deep compassion for leadership that is not heart-centered, that is impacting our entire world. But I invite you all to continue to remember the wholeness and your connection to the divine. And it takes courage to also believe that everyone has divinity inside themselves. It takes courage to be discerning versus judgmental, to understand that the leaders and others who are exhibiting values and impact that we would not agree with are themselves traumatized. And
Yes.
without that essential understanding, we cannot move forward because that continues to be us versus them. And what I'm most hopeful about is in my personal work that led me from, like, who was little Lori Leyden from the smallest state in the United States? What was she ever going to do with no resources? My myth was love isn't safe, dreams don't come true. I'm not worthy and deserving, and I'll never have the resources to do what I came to do in the world. That was my myth. And clearly, that myth has been busted. It doesn't mean that I don't have moments of self-doubt. We're all going to have moments of self-doubt. But I know in the depth of my being, in working with my people in Rwanda, the people who have experienced the worst of human tragedy, Aboriginal people in Australia, post-school shooting environments, people in active war, I, I connect with them on the level of resilience and power, and they themselves have vision for hope for the future. So if they have that resilience and inspiration, who are we not to? And let's take our inspiration from those who are suffering and yet willing to have the courage to speak about hope and what's possible. And we know metaphysically and now scientifically and with HeartMath Institute that it just takes a critical mass of people to create a resonance field where it's easier for everyone else to step into.
I love that. Living into the possibilities and the emergent, as yet unrealized potentials of the moment, and being compassionate with the depth of the suffering and the trauma, but not staying in that old story and getting ready for the new story.
And being willing to let that story go, my soul myth story, and what I call standing at the edge of your imagination. Because fear is simply a crisis of imagination.
Wonderful, Laurie. How about you, Kate? I imagine it's maybe there's some similarities, but what are you excited about as we look across the field?
Oh, I'm listening to Laurie and resonating with everything she says. I'm excited. Healing is possible. And I think my own journey demonstrated that to me more than anything. And also what I witnessed with clients, etc., that we can heal. We can become empowered in ourselves. Yes, there's a lot going on around us. The world is rumbling, but we can also, we can say no more from within our hearts to what no longer serves us, but not from being in a fear-based reaction which entangles us in the old. We can come into that coherence and be able to say no more, to look at what's going on, not stick our heads in the sand at the minute. We need to be aware, but then to be able to feel that wholeness, and we can in our own unique ways. It's there for every one of us, with that. And when we compete, I remember in the 2020, the huge bushfires that went through Australia, and working with families and firefighters, diffusing just utter devastation that they'd been through. But when we meet right in the fire of that, so to speak, when we meet that with compassion, and love, we can stand in the fire of that destruction, but then it changes. When our hearts crack open, our hearts bleed in sorrow, we can be present with it. And that itself becomes a doorway. So we can heal in our own unique ways, and become uniquely ourselves. And we are needed, what Laurie was mentioning before, for everyone that chooses healing in any moment, it contributes to the collective. You know, and that's where wholehearted evolution, the letters for that are W.E. We can do this. We can actually return to the beginning and create a new journey for humanity. Yeah.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that. Did you want to jump in there, Laurie, again, or anything?
I think that Kate and I balance each other very well in terms of the practical, spiritual, and just the questions, the spiritual questions that we need to continue to contemplate with a sense of trust, that as we surrender, and not that doesn't mean giving up, it means giving into our divine nature, that we will receive the information we need in that present situation, which has allowed me to go into the most extreme circumstances and to remain present without suffering. And the difference for me is that, that old Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the pain that we are experiencing. And truly, in order to heal the wound of separation, we must release the suffering story. Look, I feel extreme physical pain, extreme emotional pain, extreme, just pain being in the world, in a body, in a physical body. But I know now to release any story I have about it, which allows me to stay present and to receive the guidance I need in the moment.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're hearing the healing of one is the healing of all. And in the sense that it becomes cumulative, I think is what Kate and Laurie is saying, almost like a virtuous circle that healed people will then facilitate healing in others. And we know that the opposite of that is true as well. And yet that gives us some grounds for tremendous hope and encouragement that each healing moment, each healing breakthrough is cumulative for the individual and for the collective. And so this is powerful work. And, some people are facing health issues and they can apply, some of these principles too, as well as the psychological, which I think we've probably been talking mostly about. This is powerful, powerful stuff, powerful medicine, Laurie and Kate. Now we have some questions. We're going to bring in the gallery. Here we are. By the way, I loved one of the quotes in the film, Laurie. I think it said, when the weight of your giving is bigger than the weight of your pain, then the healing, really goes into another level. I think we've got
just to say that the person who said that was Matthew, one of my sons, my adopted Rwandan sons, and he said that at the time when he was 22 years old as an orphan genocide survivor with no hope for the future, but was supported by the work we were doing with them. And out of the mouths of babes, he does this, and then he's the one who connects with JT in Newtown and realizes that he truly is a leader. Anyway.
No, that's profound. That is profound. Thank you. So we have a question. Kristen Doonan has got a question. So Kristen, go ahead. You got a question for our speakers.
Hi, guys. Thank you for your beautiful sharing. And I'm on a little delay, so I'm not sure how this is going to work. But I was really moved by, everything you both said. And also, since I work with people who are facing difficulty and really striving to help them sort of bravely cross a threshold into strength, I was curious how you both inspire people to be courageous in facing the worst the worst of their trauma. And when they could so easily shut down, when it looks like it's impossible, what do you do or say to help them feel courageous? And thank you.
Kate, do you want to take that?
Sure. It's a really good question and an important question. And I think this is a part of the three-tiered wholehearted empowerment process. Often I find people don't know how to process, how to be with that. Thoughts of suicide come up when people don't know, it's a desperate solution the mind begins to look to alleviate severe emotional pain. But when people know that they can create a change with that there's ways of releasing that without self-harm in any form, that begins to build a sense that I can do something here. So often in the everyday, and someone's really struggling, it's building that sense of safety with around them, but within themselves to be able to go where they need to go. So that's often we need to build the foundation, I find in my work, for people to do that. And then that inspires their courage. It inspires hope within themselves, but it inspires courage and beginning to attune to what I want. When we ask ourselves, what do I truly want? Not what's there. Our heart begins to then speak to us. And our heart, true courage, as Laurie's talked about, comes from our heart. So I hope that answers a little.
Thank you.
Would you like to add, Laurie?
Yes, thank you. All I know is the work that I did to prepare to go to Rwanda. And that was, look, I had my PhD, I had my books, I had my skills, my tools. But what I did intensely for 3 months was sit in my shadow self. Could I sit with a woman whose entire family had been murdered and was now living with AIDS? Could I sit with a man who had murdered 100 people? Could I sit with orphan head of households who were left at the age of 6 to 8 years old and raising 4 other children with no means of support, no roof over their head, nothing? And that work of presence prepared me to be present to the worst of human tragedy. I'm aware of our time, but I had an experience of being present to 100 orphan head of households who, again, they were now 18 to 21 and been living for 13 years under this ability, under this burden of taking care of other children with no one to guide them. And it was my presence with them, my connection with them, and my sharing with them of my own traumatic childhood, which was really insignificant to what they had experienced, which laid the foundation for our continued connection and them trusting me to help lead them into that healing and that inner safety. But it all becomes possible by regulating our physiology. Now, this is a whole scientific thing that we could get into, but I just, to avoid going into all of that, and you can certainly read about that on my website, but the knowing that all of us have the opportunity to regulate our physiology enough, we are hardwired for divine connection. Heart Math Institute is proving this. So much of our science is now proving this. And when we know that each of us has that capability, that it is not just offered to a few, that we are, again, physiologically wired for the ability to feel safe in ourselves, to feel peace in ourselves, even in the midst of chaos and uncertainty. Presence is the medicine.
I love that. Presence is the medicine. Yes, Laurie, thank you. Thank you, Kate. Beautiful answers there. So much richness. We had a question from Ingrid. I think we have time for one or maybe two more questions, but let's start with Ingrid. For you, you had a question for our speakers today, sister. Oh, you need to unmute. Ingrid?
So sorry. You should
Okay.
think I would know that. It kind of dovetails with what you were talking about, the presence as the medicine, and even that fully being able to be with whatever it is that's being experienced. But I was curious in your own experiences and work, what have you noticed about the embodied observer effect, where there's a sense that the story just goes away and the person kind of hits a little crisis, because a part of basically the way that we identify with stories, then it's like an identity crisis of like, well, who am I without the story, and
Yeah.
the aspect of there's a certain amount of safety that can be found in solidarity, in like we want to be able to herd instincts of having an element of story that is a shared experience, a shared continuity of something that is has I guess social norms. What do you see as the benefits of this adaptive response of things, and what have you personally noticed about that observer effect with the story gone, who am I, what do I do now thing?
Kate, do you want to go? Or happy to.
Yes, I think we do grieve over the loss of who we thought we were. So when there's, we have identified, and that's where those deep core beliefs, they cement in as a part of our identity. And that's where sometimes they take a little bit of unhooking from that. But yeah, we grieve over the constructs of who we thought we were. So I think there's a lot in what you just asked then Ingrid, but they're good questions, and that's where the balance is needed of the healing balanced with attuning to who we are, the truth of who we are. So healing who we're not, releasing, melting who we're not, and it is, and it's a balance sometimes, and it can become frightening at times when we let go those constructs and those misidentifications. And again, that's where heartfelt courage, heartfelt desire is needed, and how we do that, and where the organic process of grief and grieving facilitates that shift within us. It's that transformative shift within us. So you might like to add to that, Laurie?
Listen, this is a profoundly insightful question for our times, because we can choose to be part of the nightmare, or we can choose to be part of the dream. And for those of us who can hold both realities at the same time, and yet I will say, we all want to belong. And oftentimes we've experienced belonging more in our stories of suffering than we have with our vision for a whole healed future. And that's because we're not quite trusting our new story yet. Who will we be, as you say, without this story? Like, I had to give up the story that who is little Lori Leyden and what is she ever going to accomplish, because love isn't safe and dreams don't come true and I don't have the resources, until I had to have the courage to realize that love is safe because I feel safe in myself, not as a result of my youth experiences. And dreams come true, not because I am afraid to dream them, but because I have the courage to love them into reality, even if they don't come in the form that I expected, but they produce the function. And so the invitation to people is, what are you willing to give up? When I sat in front of 50 chiefs of their villages, women in Rwanda, all the men were dead, all the chiefs were dead. Women had to step in. And when I was given an opportunity they were having a very extreme, tension-filled discussion. I was asked to come in. Once again, thank God I had prepared myself the way I did. And I remember saying, just surrendering. I have no idea what is happening here. I don't know how I'm going to respond. I surrendered to divine inspiration. And the question came through me, what do you want more than your grief and your trauma? And I remember my mind said, can't ask these people that. It's ridiculous. Then I surrendered my ego, and I asked the question. And then I put them through a somatic release place that they could feel that sense of inner safety. And they said, we want peace in our hearts and peace in our country. This was in 2008. How can we expect people who have lost everything to come up with that? But they themselves chose when I helped them feel safe in their bodies. That was the brilliance that they came to. And in answer to Ingrid's question, I don't tell people anything. I create the environment of safety that allows them to come up with their own answers.
Absolutely. If I may just add, that is just such a pivotal thing, is how to find safety within ourselves so that our defenses can come down, so that we can begin to feel. And it's in that many people talk about the return of the divine feminine, but really, as we heal, we're able to receive ourselves, inspirations and innovations, etc. But in deep presence, we're able to feel and receive ourselves. So the heartfelt question of what do we want more? Yes, we're more comfortable with the familiar, and we're uncomfortable with the unknown. And that's that balance. But as we tune into that our hearts, safety first, begin to feel, then we can begin to have hope, and we can begin to trust, and we can begin to feel that inner guidance emerge from within us. So, thank you.
So beautiful, so beautiful. Providing that safe space where, in essence, the self-healing can take place. And I wonder if all healing is, at some level, self-healing. I mean, even the miracles of the New Testament were often attributed to the faith of the person being healed.
Yeah.
Okay, we are close to time, but this is such a rich conversation, Emra. We're going to give you a chance. And Michael, I asked you to put your comments in the chat, but just real quickly, Emra, did you have a quick comment or question?
Yeah, I did. I mean, talked about belonging. We belong to each other. That's one of the things that I studied under a yogi 50 some years ago. And one of the images that sort of a vision almost, think of, we're all icebergs floating in the water. The little tiny tip that sticks out, that's where we are up here talking to each other. The real part of us that's below the water, which is our deep being, our deep presence, our deep whatever. And guess what we're floating in? Water. And guess what the iceberg's made out of? Water. When we melt, we go back. We're connected under the water. The water connects us together, and we're able to share everything. So I've learned that when we connect by feeling, I feel you more than I hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. We'll take that as a comment. Appreciate that. Thank you for that offering. Thank you, brother. Michael, did you have a question?
Yes. So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much, Dr. Lori Leyden, for the work that she's done with the Rwandan people. um, so my question is related to an experience I had with a gentleman who was a product of that genocide, and he witnessed his whole family die, be killed. He chopped off his arms, slashes on his back, and left for dead. And it was only through someone walking by who noticed him breathing that decided to stop and had saved his life. So it was a very profound moment for him where he could not cry for help as he witnessed people walking by him and so forth. And so I was a travel agent working, and when he came into my office, and he had eyes that were black as coal, and I'm sure you've witnessed such depth of people's eyes in these kind of cases as well. So we discussed, became friends. I had gone through my own healing journey at a young age, and we talked about different things about on the self-healing aspect of what your discussions and case discussions are. And it's very, very important that that message brings. But I wanted to know from the both of you, and what my question is, because you have different practices of process through the experience that you evolve with. And so my question was, what practice of gratitude and kindness do you transfer to those you work with to help them with love vibrations from the heart?
Thank you, Michael.
To help their healing process move forward.
What practices of gratitude and kindness in particular are you working with? Laurie, let's start with you.
Well, just briefly, because this is all part of a larger fabric of healing. It doesn't start with one thing. It starts with helping people feel safe so that they even feel safe being grateful. Some people don't feel safe even feeling gratitude. So it's in that the beauty of creating a space where they feel safe. And that's where, if you were with us in the beginning, I brought us through a little process of focusing in on gratitude and noticing how gratitude gives rise to love. And love gives rise to wonder. And in the wonder, everything is possible. I did a meditation or I did an exercise with 650 Rwandan orphans in a high school orphanage, the top of a mountain, who had nothing at all. And I asked them, I said, we're going to take 3 minutes to come up with all the things you have to be grateful for. In 3 minutes, they came up with a list of like 35 things. I invite all of you to try to come up with 35 things in 3 minutes. And like, they just, because they loved the life, they appreciated that they were alive. One woman said, I see God in the gap between my teeth. Boom. I'll leave it there.
Love it. Thank you, Laurie.
Thank
Let's
you.
give you Kate. Let's
Yes.
use this, Kate, as a sort of a wrapping up too. So your closing comments of this beautiful and rich and wonderful discussion.
I can, and we can go straight into the closing part as well if you want me to after that. But just to quickly add, it's safety is always first, within ourselves. It needs to be. And acknowledgement plays a huge role, acknowledging where we're at, what we're experiencing. And acknowledgement opens the doorway. And often with sessions with people, acknowledging their courage to be present, acknowledging their courage to be doing their inner work, really creates a deeper sense of safety. So acknowledgement, there's so many levels of acknowledgement. So I just wanted to add that with what Laurie has shared as well in answer to that question. But it's a huge question. But thank you. So if you want to, we're coming to the end of our gathering today. And Laurie's opened this with a beautiful grounding exercise. And I'd like to bring closure to our gathering today with it's a poem that I received. And I say the word I received because it came to me in that sacred silence, that stillness that we find within ourselves. And it's a story. It's a story in poem form of the journey of our humanity. And it's called Our Great Return to Create Anew. So it's rather applicable for today. So as we go into that, I invite you again just to close your eyes. Feel yourself sitting in the chair, your feet on the floor, and allow the breath to the out breath to be slow and deep. Then the in breath, and just breathing right out slowly and deeply. And again, you might choose to put your hand over your heart and just come into presence with yourself. And if you choose, give yourself permission to receive the transmission that's withheld within this poem. Our great return to create anew. A cosmic hush before time. The black velvet womb of the cosmic mother. Sacred silence, stillness. The living intelligence before all things arose. Creation unfolds, this realm of form, of individuation, of relationship. So isness may know itself. We entered through the cradle of humanity into the great forgetting, to experience, to feel, to embody. We came to believe we are separate, alone, lost. And yet, even here, beneath it all, our original innocence remains, our primordial purity untouched. Our essence, our true self, has always stayed our constant. Even now, even here, within us. Now is the time to remember, to return, not backward, but inward, where our essence and the mother are not separate, where our wholeness has always stayed, held within the great constant that has never left us. To the quiet tone beneath all noise, to the subtle note of who we are, to heal, to attune, to harmonize. And from this, we create anew.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, everybody, for being here with us. It was such a joy, such a gift, and such a beautiful field of returning to wholeness and healing in this new beginning. Very, very grateful to you, Laurie and Kate. Thank you. And looking forward to more collaborations and connections as we go forward. Thank you to our partners at Hubcast for the broadcast and to everybody who's participated in this today. Blessings.
Thank you.